Welcome back to ILTV on the Hour. We're live in Israel bringing you the biggest headlines from the region. I'm Sivan Raviv and today is day 703 of the war in Gaza. Let's get into all the top headlines at this hour. At least 6 people are dead and 11 injured from a serious terrorist shooting attack in Jerusalem's Ramot neighborhood this morning. The attack occurred around 10:13 a.m. at the Ramot Junction, a busy area on Yigal Yadin Street in Jerusalem. Panic erupted as gunfire rang out, but quick action from a soldier and an armed civilian at the scene helped stop the carnage. The terrorists were shot and neutralized on site. These are the names of the victims published thus far. Rabbi Levi Yitzhak Pash from Tel Tzion, Yisrael Metzner 28 from Jerusalem, Rabbi Yosef David 43 from Jerusalem, and Yaakov Pinto 25 from Jerusalem. May their memory be a blessing. Israeli police and emergency responders rushed to the scene this morning, evacuating the injured, recovering weapons and ammunition, and securing the area. Among the items found were multiple firearms and a knife reportedly carried by the terrorists. Prime Minister Netanyahu visited the scene right after, and National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir arrived alongside senior police officials for an immediate situation assessment. Large security forces have since been deployed, and the IDF confirmed that its soldiers are working in cooperation with police to search for any additional suspects. At the same time, IDF units began encircling several areas on the outskirts of Ramallah as part of broader counterterrorism efforts aimed at preventing follow-up attacks and bolstering defenses in the capital. This attack underscores the ongoing threat facing Israelis in daily life, even far from the front lines of Gaza and the northern border, and adds to the already tense security environment across the country. Footage from the scene shows chaos and panic as Magen David Adom paramedics rushed to treat the injured. Multiple emergency units and Jerusalem district police teams flooded the area, quickly locking down the intersection and securing the perimeter. An investigation is now underway into the identities and affiliations of the terrorists. Officials have not yet confirmed whether the shooting was coordinated or if other suspects may be involved. Police are urging the public to avoid the area while security forces continue sweeps to ensure there is no secondary threat. We will continue to update on this as more information comes along. In the meantime, let's take a look at this footage from inside a car which was driving on that specific road. We can clearly hear the gunshots and see people running away as the terrorist attack unfolded. Take a look. Let's take a listen to a witness who was on site as this happened.
I came really a few minutes later. I saw tons of, hundreds of people running for their life, blood all over. It was a really, really hard place over here. People on the floor. This place over here is full of people every day. Just full of people, hundreds. I think there were here maybe 300 people.
And now joining me is our ILTV executive editor, Mayan Hoffman, who is on scene at the Hadassah Hospital in Jerusalem. Hi, Mayan.
Hi, Zorain. Thanks for having me.
Mayan, tell us what happened this morning. What are the details on the ground?
Okay, so first of all, I just came from the scene of their terror attack. It's now pretty much cleaned up, but until about a half an hour ago, what we saw was really total chaos. We know that, there were 6 people who were killed, 11 injured, and more than 24 who were treated for shock at the scene. This is a bus stop that is very packed at the time of morning when the terror attack took place. It has not 100 or 200, but several hundred people who are waiting there to take buses. As I'm sure we heard in your reports, there were a civilian and a soldier who were able to take down the 2 terrorists who perpetrated the incident this morning. One of them was from a member of the Orthodox community. That area has a very large religious population.
Now, what are they saying at the hospital? We know that there was a victim who was brought into the hospital alive and died as they tried to save their life.
Yes, died of her injuries when she arrived. Hadassah actually is the major trauma center here in the area, and 15 of the patients were brought between the two campuses, Hadassah and Karen, where I am now, and Hadassah Har Hatzofim. There are a number of patients that are still in critical condition, others in moderate and light condition. Unfortunately, as we spoke earlier today, Jerusalem is used to being a site of terror attacks, where we talk about the North and the South during the ongoing almost 2 years of war. But when it comes to terror attacks, Jerusalem tends to be the height, and Hadassah, unfortunately, is accustomed to taking in these patients. I'll be going up soon to the helicopter pad, where I'll be able to see where emergency victims are helicoptered in for immediate treatment.
Good. We'll try to get back to you when you're up there. But in the meantime, do we know the identity of the terrorists, who they're affiliated with?
My understanding is that we still don't know any direct affiliation, but we are investigating the affiliation of the terrorists. We do know that they entered Israel from villages near Ramallah in the West Bank. We don't know yet if it was a coordinated attack or something more individualized.
And what about the people who neutralized the terrorists and prevented an even larger terrorist attack? Do we know anything about them?
What we do know is that one of them was an ultra-Orthodox soldier who had just received his gun license about a year ago, and the other was a civilian with the gun license on the grounds. We've also seen incredible scenes, for example, of a taxi driver who drove an elderly woman to safety when he started to hear the gunshots going in another direction. We know about one of the victims who was murdered, that he, in fact, was somebody who had gotten out of a car 5 minutes before at a bus stop, and had given up his seat in a tramp to his Torah learning, and then was killed. I'm sorry, they're just moving me here at the hospital. We're actually bringing a victim out. I'm just going to turn the camera around for us so that we don't see that patient, obviously patient privacy here at the medical center.
Obviously. Well, thank you very much, Mayan, for this report, and we'll try to get back to you a bit later. Thank you for now.
Thank you.
And joining me now is Ori Shacham, Director of Magen David Adom's Jerusalem region. That's Israel's emergency medical services. Thank you for joining.
Hi.
Ori, tell me about this unfortunate scene. What did your responders first encounter as they arrived?
Around 10:15 a.m. this morning, we got a lot of calls in our dispatch center in Magen David Adom that tells our people that there is a terror attack, that terrorists are shooting against the autobus, against the bus in Ramot Junction.
Yeah.
Immediately, we sent to the scene more than 10 intensive care units and around 15 ambulances, first responders who came with a motorcycle, and people who are coming from their houses, and starting to treat the people who were injured. We treat 13 people who were injured, most of them very hard, and we evacuate them to the nearest hospital. And unfortunately, we had to pronounce dead on the scene on 4 people. Now, as I understood, 2 more people were passed away at the hospital during the treatment over there. So the total amount of the people who were dead were 6 people who died on the scene, and around 30 people who were evacuated to the hospital.
Do we know if there are other people in serious or fatal condition at the moment?
For now, no. I think the last injured people was evacuated by Magen David Adom from the scene to the hospital around 15 to 17 minutes right after the event has started.
And what about kind of trauma and psychological trauma injuries?
We found by the scene, after we evacuate all the injured people, we found some people who were psychological injuries, and we took them also to the hospital, involving the municipality, who has a special unit to treat this kind of people.
Okay, well, thank you very much for these important updates, and hopefully all the injured will recover quickly and swiftly. Thank you very much, Ori Shacham.
Thank you.
And with me now to discuss the meaning of these latest events is Ishai Fleischer, former international spokesperson for the Jewish community of Hebron. Thank you, Ishai, for coming here and being with us.
Thank you. And not former, present. Continue to be the spokesman for the Jewish community of Hebron.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Ishai, was an attack like this expected, or were Israelis caught off guard here?
Well, we're not off guard anymore because we know we're in a time of war. We've had a war for 2 years now. My daughter asked me, she said, how long is this war last? I said to her, I don't know, 5 years. She said, really? I said, yes, because we still have the whole issue of Judea and Samaria, which is full of jihadism. At the end, our war is against jihadism. And so wherever jihadism is taught, and jihadism can be defined as a religious ideology that wants to see Israel destroyed, in our case. And so jihadism is sadly alive and well in parts of Judea and Samaria that are under the control of the so-called Palestinian Authority. And this organization teaches jihadism. How do I know? Did I read it in newspapers? No, I actually have Palestinian Authority television at home. I just watch it. I don't need more than 5 minutes. It's 24/7 anti-Israel propaganda. And so they're teaching it to them. They're funding, the PA is funding terrorists, including the Hamas terrorists that took part in the October 7th massacre. And so now, you know, they're feeling the pinch because we're destroying them in Gaza, because we, you know, just fought in Yemen so strongly. And so they want to bring out what we call in Hebrew a pigua, terrorist act. And they managed to do it. We're at high alert, certainly. But the war with the jihadism of Judea and Samaria hasn't really started. We have operations in Jenin, etc. But the big war against this organization and the Hamas in Judea and Samaria in the so-called West Bank is yet to come. And this is another catalyst to make sure that this Gaza war doesn't just end in Gaza, but really is a opportunity. And I hate to use such a dark moment, such a dark day, and to put the word opportunity, but opportunity to save lives in the future, to better the region by using this moment and today's awful terror attack as a fulcrum to destroy the remnants of jihadism that wants to destroy Israel in Judea and Samaria and in Gaza and on our borders.
Now, you know quite a lot about Palestinian terror, especially serving as a spokesperson for the Jewish community in Hebron. Tell us about the evolving threats from inside the city in Jerusalem and from within the territories.
So, look, we have, first thing, before we even go on to the so-called territories, what we call Judea and Samaria, it seems, and this is unconfirmed, but I'm not a police spokesman, so I could say things that are not confirmed, that the bus drivers were in cahoots with these terrorists. They are right now under investigation, I just saw in the Shabak. And so, but there is reports from people, bystanders and people on the bus that saw the bus driver leave the bus, was on the phone and left just as he told people to get out. In the exact same moment, the terrorists came in. So this is an Israeli Arab bus driver. So we have a problem, not just with the so-called territories, Judea and Samaria, and the jihadism that's taught there, but also with Israeli Arabs who more and more identify themselves with the Palestinian cause and therefore anti-Israelism. So look, on the one hand, the Gaza war that we've fought has certainly subdued some of the jihadism, because a lot of people here in Hebron, and I'm in Hebron right now, say, why should we start up with the Jews? They're obviously strong. They're not going anywhere. We might as well accept it. And then there are Arab sheikhs, so-called Palestinian religious leaders here, and Mukhtar's family leaders, who are clan leaders, who are actually calling to leave the PA and to join Israel. They are tired of the lack of fulfillment of promises of the PA. They want to join Israel. They want to be part of the Abraham Accords, and they want out of the Palestinian Authority system because it is corrupt, it is jihadist, and it has not brought to them their dreams of a Palestinian state. So a lot of people want out. On the other hand, some people have just been subdued by the Gaza war, and then there's other people who are, as we saw today, who are jihadists, who want to fight back against Israel, who want to show the world that Israel is vulnerable. This is a boon to all those anti-Israel folks out there. They say, look, you see, the jihad strikes them from within. They're weak. But I think today's events show also strength, because let's not forget the shooting, that the defense that took place by an ultra-Orthodox soldier. And that just proves how ultra-Orthodox soldiers are able to defend Israel and are part of Israel's defense. And I think the ultra-Orthodox world, which was attacked today, also was the one that fought back. So I think that there's also a great moment of heroism today, and that's important to remember at this moment.
So exactly what you're referencing now, the two terrorists were neutralized rather quickly. Police blocked access and emergency units dispatched quickly. What do you think this says about the operational readiness? And is the response sufficient in your opinion?
Look, it's never going to be sufficient until Jewish people walk the land and drive in the land without fear. And but by the way, let me add, and this is important to know, that the jihad usually attacks moderate Arabs first. There's a lot of both brainwashing and physical attack threatening against moderate Arabs who want to see normalization with Israel. Are we operationally ready? I think that we can't talk that way anymore after the 7th of October. We can't speak haughtily and say we're ready. Clearly, we missed a lot of the signs, and I think that we are still not totally ready for a Judea and Samaria for that phase of the war, but it's coming, and Israel has shown itself to be very resilient, and I think that we're seeing a generation of Israeli courage that has returned, Israeli fighting spirit that has returned. Today in the army, like every young infantry soldier has already battle experience. We are a different country than we were 2 years ago, so we are definitely much more ready. And I think that what we saw today with an ultra-Orthodox soldier trained and shooting, and not just shooting, engaging the enemy, running towards the enemy, which is part of the Israeli battle, the way that we do war, which is we run towards the enemy and we engage him. We saw that today in an ultra-Orthodox young man who these ultra-Orthodox fighters really proved that it is important to give guns. And I think that Minister Ben-Gvir, who's the Minister of National Security, who has really empowered citizens to have more guns and now also empowered more areas to get more guns. There's about 100,000 guns coming into civilian hands soon to add to that defense. He's been proven right that as civilians having those guns makes a difference. Those people who say ultra-Orthodox folks can contribute a lot in the army and can defend themselves better are also proven right today. Those people, like myself, who have been warning against jihadism running amok in Judea and Samaria and even in mainland Israel, have also been proven right. Today is a horrible day. We mourn the loss. We embrace the families, but we have to use it also as an opportunity to say it's time to take the Gaza operation into Judea and Samaria and clean out the jihadism that has infiltrated our land. We have to get rid of that jihadism. We have to bring safety back to the streets for both Jews and other people who live in the great state of Israel.
So, especially, I'd like to point out what you said, that one of the people who neutralized the attackers was from the ultra-Orthodox community. And we know there's a lot of criticism in recent years, especially since October 7th, of the ultra-Orthodox not serving in the army, not taking part. And today, this event, I think, proved otherwise.
Yeah, I think, how should we say, it's a turning point in the ultra-Orthodox thinking. It's not just about the army as part of like Israel and blue and white and all the brand of Zionism. It might be a different brand. It might be a black and white brand, but it's still Zionism. It's still defense. And bad guys should not be able to strike at any parts of the Israeli community. And so when the ultra-Orthodox are armed, are trained, are part of the Israeli defense, the country's stronger. And one of the reasons, let's be frank, one of the reasons that the terrorists chose this area today is because they're ultra-Orthodox folks, and they think of them as being less defended, less armed, less ready to reply. And so therefore, the jihadist terrorist gunmen could stand out there and shoot and keep shooting. And I'm sure that they expected to come out today with tens and tens of Israelis killed and not 6 or 7, sadly. Of course, we don't take that for granted. But the point is that an ultra-Orthodox young man shooting back at terrorists and getting rid of them, taking them down in a kind of trained and professional manner, that is a turning point. That is a turning point. And it's a day that will be remembered as a heartbreaking day, but also a beginning of a kind of heroic return to arms for the ultra-Orthodox. Jewish people should not allow themselves to be shooting ducks. Ducks that are, what do they call it? A duck shoot. That's what I meant. No, we have to be able to defend ourselves and strike back. And maybe today the jihadis will think to themselves, looks like the ultra-Orthodox are not as defenseless as we thought. And certainly Israel is not defenseless. I hope, as I said before, that this will bring closer a general operation to clean the jihad out of our land.
Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, just thinking back, attacks in major cities like Jerusalem have always taken place. I remember them clearly as far back as, year 2000, 2001, during the Second Intifada. There were so many. Do you think that here we're heading for another wave?
There is definitely threats like that. And there are threats from other places as well. There are definitely threats from Judea and Samaria that there might be an intifada or a major attack on Jews or an uptick. And if that's true, and if the intelligence people know that, then the way to do it is not to appease the bad guys, but to strike at them and to preemptively strike at them. Let this day today be the thing that causes that preemptive strike. Yes, our troops are pretty much tied up in Gaza. And the war, the way it's been, if you've noticed, we started in Gaza, then we went over to Lebanon, then we went over to Iran, and the next big thing is Judea and Samaria. So we got to tie up the Gaza thing by striking hard against the Hamas and destroying them. Yes, there is such an opportunity right now to destroy Hamas. There should be nobody to negotiate with on the other side. Those guys are not to be negotiated with. We always used to say you can't negotiate with terrorists. So that's what there's nothing to negotiate with the Hamas of Gaza, according to people like myself. And when it comes to Judea and Samaria, yes, that is the next theater of operations. There's no doubt about it. There's a lot of bad guys. There's a lot of arms. And there's a lot of good folks who don't want to be under the thumb of jihadism, including Arabs, who want to come under the rubric and defense of Israel as residents, as part of Israel. That has to be worked out properly. The economics of it have to be worked out properly. But Palestinian Authority is dangerous. It's corrupt. It's jihadist. The Hamas is jihadist. We've got to clean out that brainwashing. We got to rescue future people from being killed by this jihad like we saw today. We can't let that happen anymore. As we say, never again. And we have to ensure that our land is safe and prosperous. And Abraham Accords is the right way forward. But the Abraham Accords cannot move forward without jihadism. By the way, let me just add that the UAE and Saudi Arabia have threatened, the UAE has threatened to pull out of the Abraham Accords if Israel annexes Judea and Samaria. Well, with friends like these, we have every right to our historical homeland. And if anybody wants to be our ally, it's because Israel is strong, because Israel is a good ally, because Israel will bring life-saving technology, tourism, prosperity, spirituality to this region. But if the UAE doesn't want that and wants to tell us what to do, then that's not the kind of Abraham Accords we need. We need real partners in this region, people who respect our history, our rights, and our strength and determination. That's the kind of partners we need. And so the UAE, if they want to pull out of the Abraham Accords for us, asserting sovereignty over ancestral homeland, that's not the partners we need.
Well, hopefully more nations will join along the Abraham Accords. Certainly Netanyahu and Trump would like so and would hope so.
And so would we.
And so would we. So would we here in Israel. Well, thank you very much for this valuable input and for your observations. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now I'd like to go back to our ILTV executive editor, Maayan Hoffman, who is at Hadassah Hospital. Maayan, are you with us?
Yeah, with you. I'm actually now here on the helicopter pad where emergency helicopters
Yes, we hear you, Mayan. Keep going,
Okay,
please.
where the helicopters land, I want to give you an update that actually Hadassah just updated the numbers that not 15 but 23 patients were treated here, again, including the 57-year-old patient who died of its wounds. So, yeah, here at Hadassah.
Are there any updates that we haven't heard from before about the different levels of injuries that of people who are currently treated at Hadassah?
Sure. So what we're seeing is that there are a number in critical condition. The majority, however, are in moderate condition. And then there are about 7 in what we consider light condition or less severe injuries. I do want to say, though, that when we speak about light or moderate injuries, this can be things like losing a leg. It means that they are not in life-threatening distress, but it doesn't necessarily mean that their lives will not be altered. And we saw that certainly with October 7th. I think it's always very important to keep that in mind when we talk about the number of dead and injured, that these injuries generally in a terror attack of this nature are severe, and that light is all relative. It just generally means, again, not life-threatening.
Right. So when people say light injury, they don't envision, losing a leg or losing an arm, but that is considered a light injury.
Right, exactly. Or, the ability to hear after the sound of the gunshot so close to you. There are many different examples of that. And we don't generally take that into consideration when we think of the thousands of people who were injured on October 7th throughout this war, of course, with the soldiers, and here today in this terrorist attack.
Have you spoken to any of the doctors, maybe? Have you heard any feedback? What are people saying about what happened this morning?
So I haven't spoken to the doctors, but I have spoken to a number of members of the staff. So Hadassah, again, is the number one largest trauma center here in Israel. There's also another hospital, Shari Tzedek, where other patients were brought. These are generally the 2 locations where the patients were brought in the event of an attack in the area. And as I think I mentioned earlier, Jerusalem has received the brunt of these kinds of terror attacks over the years, certainly during the Second Intifada, where the trauma centers, the emergency rooms, became very accustomed to taking patients in and treating them right away. In fact, unfortunately, as we spoke about, one of the patients did die of her injuries, but the truth of the matter is the majority are saved once they make it to the hospital, if there is any way, because all of the teams come together. I think one of the most beautiful things in just walking through the corridors today, and this is true of all Israeli hospitals, that we are talking, and I heard Ishai, before, talking about the jihadists and the terrible Arab entities, and that is very true when we talk about the Palestinian Authority and Hamas and the terrorist organizations. But here in Israel, Arabs and Jews largely live side by side. Contrary to all of the tapes that you hear about apartheid states, et cetera, a hospital is a perfect example of Jews, Muslims, and Christians working together. And as I walked up to the helicopter pad up the stairs, I saw Arab patients, Arab doctors, Arab doctors treating the Jewish patients harmed today in the terror attack. So in that sense, there is still something beautiful to reflect on at the end of this attack. And we will go on and we will rise from it. And God willing, not see any more attacks of this kind.
There's absolutely a beautiful coexistence of Arabs and Jews here in Israel, and hopefully that's one thing that abroad and the international community does not always see. But thank you for pointing that out, Mayan Hoffman. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now I'd like to go to Benjamin Netanyahu at the scene. Let's take a look at what he had to say.
אנחנו עכשיו במרדף וכיתור של הכפרים שמהם באו המרצחים, ואנחנו נשיג את כל מי שסייע באדם, כל מי ששילח אותם, ואנחנו ננקוט בצעדים קשים עוד יותר. אני רוצה לומר בצורה הכי ברורה, הרציחות הללו, הפיגועים הללו, בכל הגזרות, הם לא מרפים את ידינו. הם רק מגדילים את הנחישות שלנו, להשלים את המשימות שלקחנו על עצמנו. גם בעזה, גם ביהודה ושומרון, בכל מקום. אנחנו נלחמים בטרור, במשטר הטרור של החות'ים, באיראן שמגבה את כולם, בעזה, בלבנון, בחיזבאללה, בכל הגזרות. אנחנו לא מרפים וגם לא נרפה. אנחנו נעצים את הפעולות שלנו ואנחנו נשיג את כל המטרות שלנו.
And that was Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on scene of the terrorist attack that occurred this morning around 10:15 a.m. We are seeing the results of that terrorist attack. We have 6 people dead and at least 11 injured with a variety of injuries. That's a wrap for this edition of ILTV, broadcasting live from Israel in the heart of the Middle East. I'm Sivan Raviv. Thank you very much for watching and stay safe.